Welcome back to Remade in California. I'm career coach Pat Pattison. We're the show that explores people who are launching new careers and businesses or simply reinventing themselves. Joining us is Ibarionex Perello, photographer who now hosts his own podcast. He has followed his passion and allowed it to lead him to new creative careers. You have such a fun job.
Thank you.
I'm
enjoying it.
Yeah, well, to go from photography then to figure out this podcasting. How did you initially get involved in photography?
Oh, I was 10 years old. I was going to the Boys Club of Hollywood.
Okay.
And one of the counselors there had an affinity for photography. And there was a darkroom there that had fallen into disuse. And so he fixed it all up, and he had two freelance photojournalists come to the club to teach kids how to load film to the camera, how to process film, and how to make prints. And then the first moment I saw that image come out on that blank sheet of paper, I was completely sold on it.
That was
so that was it. It was game over.
An aha moment.
Oh,
this is what I was meant to do.
I would have been a pool shark otherwise, because I played at the club. They had pool tables, and that's all I would do.
I remember I went to Boys Club too.
That's all I would do is play for 4 or 5 hours, just playing pool, getting really good at it.
I know.
But once I got turned on to the camera, I left all that behind.
And being a fellow pool shark, how dare we talk about these kids play video games too? It's the same bloody thing. Anyway, so where did you hone your skills in photography? What was your kind of educational path or professional path?
Yeah, I joined a newspaper at Los Angeles City College.
Okay.
And it was there that I started writing and making pictures seriously, and it was the first time I ever had a sense that I could make a living
there was
from
a career
those things.
Here.
So that was really epiphany for me, because before I was pretty lost in terms of what I wanted to do with my life.
Okay.
But once I started working on the paper and working in collaboration with other people, I realized I'm good at this and I can make something of it.
In terms of what you do and the business you run, is there any licensing necessary to do?
That's a great thing about podcasting.
Yeah.
Is that at least when I got into it, it was brand new.
Okay.
So, and I think it's one of the reasons why I got into it without any sort of fear or trepidation, because I had nothing to compare myself to.
Okay.
There were some other shows on photography at the time that I was listening to that focused on equipment and gear, but no one was talking to photographers about photography, about living a creative life. And I felt like, oh, that's a good place to get into. But because there was nothing else to compare it to, I didn't deal with the normal fear and anxiety of comparing myself to saying, oh, this guy's so good at this, how do I dare get into the same deal?
Just in case we had to define what a podcast is.
A podcast is
we're always assuming everybody knows everything.
Yeah, it's very, even now, 12 years later, people still don't know what it is. It's basically internet radio, it's radio on demand.
Okay.
So rather than having to sort of tune in to a program at a specific time, you can listen on your computer, on your device, on your iPad, on your tablet, on your phone, and listen to any kind of program from any genre anytime you want.
I downloaded a lot of NPR podcasts, for example, rather than having to figure out when to tune in to.
And the thing about podcasting, unlike radio, is that the bar to entry is very affordable as far as creators are concerned, and the audience doesn't necessarily have to be as huge as it would have to be for terrestrial radio.
Right.
If you have a niche, which my show is, you can get into the game fairly easily, and you'll find an audience. Some audience.
If you're good at it, you're being very humble.
Well, the median number for a podcast of the tens of thousands of podcasts is about 250 listeners.
Interesting.
And then you sort of hit the bell curve when you start getting into the tens of thousands.
Yeah.
But if you just are passionate about something and you just want to share it with other people, you'll find your audience. You'll find the people who are just as passionate as you are. And I think that's the great thing about podcasting, is that you can do a show on virtually anything, and you'll inevitably find an audience of people who love it as much as you do.
Because it's got to live out there, and people can find it as needed.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how has your podcast grown since you started out? I mean, what were some of the landmarks?
I started doing it just because I wanted to create a show that I wanted to listen to.
That's a good criterion.
I I interviewed a lot of photographers.
By the way, this show is like that. I'm the only one that watches it. I go home, no.
But I would listen to all these other shows where they're talking about equipment, and I was working as an editor, so I would interview the photographers.
Right.
But I always felt like the conversations that I wanted to have with them and that I wanted to see in print were never the same.
Okay.
Because there was always sort of an agenda in terms of selling equipment and having to talk about equipment. And I didn't want to do
like product placement.
Right.
And like, like an infomercial.
And there were questions I wanted to ask of these photographers that I knew would never find their way to print. So I created a show that was just about what I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
So I get to interview some of my heroes in photography, like Mary Ellen Mark, William Albert Allard, people whose work I'd seen and looked at during college, looking at their books and having the chance to sit down next to them and talk to them about work. Work that I just had been inspired by was remarkable.
Is that when you, I mean, I know you have a pretty high listen rate. I mean, how do you keep it successful and fresh so people listen? You know, I'm assuming wanting to have lots of people listen is a goal.
Yeah, it's mostly been through word of mouth. I largely, for the most part, have done the show by myself, and for the last 5-6 years I've had an editor who edits it, and my wife has just taken up the producer responsibilities for the show over the last year. But most of the time I promoted the show just on social network, on Facebook, using Twitter, increasingly Instagram. But people would basically hear episodes of photographers that they really liked and admired, and they would share it with other people. So I started off with, hundreds of downloads, and now it's anywhere between 80 to 100,000 downloads a month.
Oh my gosh! So 80 to well, congratulations.
So right now it's just like trying to grow that audience and increase awareness of the show, because even though I've been around for 11 years, there's still a lot of people who don't know about it.
Yeah, it takes a while. So your passion is photography, now your passion is podcasting. How do you balance which comes first, or do you need to balance?
Well, when I figure that out, I'll let you know.
Well, I mean, do you find it a challenge to devote time to both?
Yeah, that's the biggest issue for anybody who's creative. It's like finding the time for all the stuff that you love to do versus all the stuff that you need to do in order to earn a living.
Right.
Because I still...
Well, talk about that a little bit. I mean, what are the financial ramifications of running after a passion like you're doing?
Well, for the most part, I've not been earning my full income from podcasting. That's probably only started happening in the last couple of years, where I have advertisers, I have sponsors now, listener sponsors.
And that's because you reached a certain volume of listenership.
Right, where I'm able to do that. And then people are also donating on a monthly basis to the show. But it's also provided me other opportunities. I've written like 5 books on photography.
Wow.
The first book came as a result of the publisher being aware of what I was doing with the show, and realizing that I had an audience, that I had something to say, and then I started doing workshops, and then again invited to different opportunities are offered to me as a result of doing the show.
Wow.
So as I created a name for myself, beyond merely the byline in a magazine, I sort of had a certain cachet that created all these opportunities that I could never have anticipated when I started the show.
And in terms of photography as a profession, is that happening just in time? Because I know everybody thinks they're a photographer. I mean, the business of photography itself has to be soft, right?
It can be. It's a really difficult career to sort of to navigate. I think it's always changing. I'm sure that when with digital came, the guys who were shooting film were going, photography is ruined. Now everybody can become a photographer, and now it's like digital people who had real cameras are lamenting the fact that people are doing it with their phones. So it's an age-old complaint from generation to generation, but it's the nature of things.
You are a good role model and example of doing just that.
Thanks.
So thanks for being on the show. For more information about Ibarionex and to check out his podcasts, visit him at thecandidframe.com. And for more information on how California's community colleges can help you be remade in California, go to doingwhatmatters.cccco.edu. Thank you, and see you next time.